As a child, we all long for a hero. As a society as a whole, we search for that leader that can be our hero. But as we mature and as we grow, it dawned on us that the hero is inside every one of us. And in the world's social media, we all start at zero. And slowly we search deep within ourselves to find who we are. And we have that moment of truth where we embrace that the hero that we've been searching for has been there all along. It is living deep inside of every one of us. And we start embracing that journey and we become that hero that we search for.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to episode 21 of Zero to Hero. Today, we are joined by special guest Michael Zeller. He's the CEO of Flying Truss LLC, which is heading up the Rock Island Bridge project. It's going to be coming soon to the West Bottom. So let's go ahead and bring him in, Michael Zeller and Kevin Kwok.
Hey, Michael, good to have you today on our show. Hey, before we start, tell us a little about Flying Truss real quick.
Flying Truss is an LLC with three partners, myself, Mike Ladden, and John McGurk, formed to develop a very unique real estate project converting the unused Rock Island Railroad Bridge over the Kansas River into an entertainment district and some public crossing and a trailhead.
That's amazing. I think it's much needed in that direction to bring more traffic for, entertainment and retail and different things like that. Yep. So in a couple of sentences, give me an elevator pitch, not about the project or your company, but about you. Who is Michael Zeller?
I've done a lot of interviews, but nobody's asked me to answer that one. Who's Michael Zeller? He's an optimist. He's somebody that tries to find opportunity where it's often overlooked, and is willing to do the hard work to bring the people and the resources together to make it happen.
Yeah, so you're a connector.
Yeah, I'm a connector. It's a bridge project.
Hey. All right. So tell us a little, as a digital agency, we always ask this question. Tell us about your social media journey or your thoughts on social media.
Our social media journey is pretty limited to Facebook, really, right now. We have a very light Instagram presence, but it's really just been informational. We don't have a consumer-facing project at this point. We have a partnership with the Unified Government of Kansas City, Kansas, and as part of that, getting that into place involved a lot of community engagement. We had a lot of big events called Cost Socials down at the waterfront. As a metro, we got kind of a blind spot for our rivers. As a city, we've never really gotten our arms around them for a variety of historical reasons I could tell you about. But one way to help overcome that is to bring people to the rivers. And, we have had 3 or 4, several thousand person events down at the river with live music, barbecue, kayaks, canoes on the water, bridge tours out over the river itself. We had 60-foot blue whale kite in the sky. The FAA came. People have had a really good time, and we've used social media in those occasions to help amplify those efforts and for people to see that opportunity that we've, for whatever reason, had a blind spot to.
Why has the river been, why does it have I think throughout the years, it kind of had a lack of interest from other developers? Is there a reason for that, or?
Well, to start with, you've got to roll the clock back. Kansas City is a railroad city. We're not really a river city. Lewis and Clark stopped here And some of the earliest settlements were where the riverboats would stop in Independence and then at what was the city of Kansas City. So they would unload and then come down to Westport, which was the thriving metropolis in the 1840s, 1850s. But the city was going, as we know it now, was going nowhere until the Hannibal Bridge was built, which brought the railroad across the river. And St. Louis, St. Joe, which was a far bigger city at the end of the Civil War than Kansas City, started to slip into decline as Kansas City took all of that business that was coming across the continent, got funneled through Kansas City. Those same tracks later came along the Missouri River and separated downtown from the Missouri River.
Huh.
So physically, we were disconnected from the river by the railroad. We weren't Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or Cincinnati that developed earlier in the riverboat age where they had the infrastructure that was facing the river. That never really happened here. And the Kansas River, which joins the Missouri River at Caw Point and is ultimately the reason the metro's here, those two rivers coming together. It was surrounded by the Stockyards District for 100 years. That's all gone now, but for 100 years, there was a lot of, let's just call it unused material that was put into that river, and it wasn't a pleasant place. But now it's all cleaned up. It's the same river that flows through Lawrence, the Kansas River. That's where our bridge is.
No, it makes a lot of sense because I love taking my boys out by the river and taking a walk. And I always wonder why is there not much retail here? There's not much things to do. Like even if you go St. Louis, there's quite a bit surrounding the river. Yeah. I always wonder why Kansas City, you would think there's a lot more, by the river.
Yeah, I think it's cultural. These are lowland rivers and they have a lot of soil in them. They're not particularly polluted. There's not a lot of industry upstream on the Kansas or the Missouri River, particularly. There's runoff from farm fields, but they look dirty, and that doesn't help. They're not really rivers you would want to swim in. The Missouri's far too fast anyway for that. But they're great boating rivers, and especially the Kansas River, which moves at about 1/3 the speed of the Missouri. I think the problem is groupthink. The Missouri River is really swift and it's pretty dangerous. I've kayaked and canoed on it, but I don't think anybody would want to have a business renting kayaks and canoes to the general public on the Missouri River as it comes through the city here. It's so narrow, channelized, it speeds up as it narrows. But the Kansas River is very boatable. It's very safe. You can paddle upstream in a kayak or canoe, no problem. And what we're doing with some other partners that I can talk about if you like, is starting the rebranding of the rivers, getting people engaged with them. They've been in the wrong folder in our minds, perhaps, for a very long time. And we got to get it over into another place where we see them as opportunity.
No, that's great. And I definitely I think it's a matter of perspective, right? If people don't understand something, they just try to avoid it altogether. So it's just giving that rebranding a different look and feel, and so that's good. So let's shift back to you.
Well, I just go on a little bit further about it. Is the rivers are even kind of hard to see. I've always been one of those guys that when I'm driving over the Missouri or the Kansas River on an overpass, I'm stealing a glance from the side at these powerful things that move through our city all night, all day, every day, and they move silently, but they're big. It's big geography. We'll never have a mountain or an ocean in Kansas City, but we've got two big rivers and a couple smaller ones too, the Platte and the Blue. And it's time that we embrace them and develop them and use them for recreation.
No, that's great. And it's just an added bonus, right? With the female soccer team, the Currents, they're out in that area as well. I think it's really, Kansas City's kind of spotlighting that area now, right? Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that. We organized a motorboat tour of the rivers for Chris and Angie Long about 6 weeks ago.
Oh, really?
It was really hot that day. And of course, they knew that their footprint was next to the river, but I don't think it had emotionally sunk in what that meant until they saw their their construction zone from the water itself. That river's 400 yards across there. And they were really a bit gobsmacked at the significance of it, and immediately started to think, how could that be engineered in a way that engaged more with the river than just having a riprap levee, steep levee wall there? And 3 weeks later, when they did the ribbon cutting, they arrived by boat. I don't know if you noticed that, but really wanting to celebrate that land-water connection. Things are always the most interesting at the margins, where the ocean meets the land, or the mountain meets the plains, where the river meets the city.
That's pretty cool. I didn't notice that, but that's great.
Yeah, they used our friend, the same guy that gave us a boat ride that day.
So every superhero has a defining moment. What is yours when it comes to life in your career?
Well, first off, I don't think I'm a superhero. I think I'm a tenacious person. What is my defining moment? I was a C student in high school. I wasn't particularly a troublemaker, but not all that engaged with my schoolwork, doing a lot of things outside of school that were interesting and meaningful. But one day I saw a note on the wall in a hall, and it said, trip to Germany. And I thought, I'd like to go to Germany. So I walked into the library where the head librarian was organizing the AFS, and I said, what about this trip to Germany? And he said, well, you really need to be studying German, or are you in German club? And I said, no. And I just remember there was this long pause as I kept looking at him, and he said, well, we got one extra ticket. So, so I got to go. And it really changed my world. Getting outside of the country for a month, going to Munich with my friends. And I think it just lit me up, and I realized it's a really big world out there, and I want to be a part of it. And I might have gotten there anyhow, but that's when I decided, I'm going to go to college. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I was a kid, hadn't thought much about it. And I'm going to put my arms around things and go for it. And I think it was that trip that really triggered me.
Now, and for those of you in the audience, highly recommended. If you've never traveled outside the country, there's just so much to see. Even traveling within the U.S. itself, right? It's still the U.S., so you still have the same experiences somewhat. But when you really get out of, our country, you see a different perspective. It allows you to broaden your mindset. And hey, there's more than just us, right? Yeah.
I mean, America's great, and I'm a patriot, and we're just 4% of the world,
Yep.
A fun part about traveling too is coming home, and especially if you're out there long enough where things start to seem normal. At first, it's exotic, and then it's irritating, and then it sort of becomes normal. I've lived in Taipei and Prague and Munich for extended periods, and I seem to go through those phases. Getting agitated too, when you order a bowl of cereal and it comes and it's warm, just little things like that. But after a while, everything becomes, that's the way it is. But then coming back to the United States with that pure eye, an outsider's eye, it wears off. But it's always interesting the first week or so when I get back in the U.S.
And I'm sure, Michael, you probably took some of those traveling experiences and ideas and concepts and bringing it to the 1905 Rock Island Bridge, as you're planning.
Yeah. Not intentionally, but probably having lived for extended periods of time in Europe, in old Europe, where they have so much old infrastructure, and they're willing to, for not just for preservationist reasons, but for practical reasons, just reinvent stuff. And to not let perfect be the enemy of pretty damn good. They're real comfortable with dual or triple use for a lot of stuff, like the railroad bridge right now. Time immemorial, bridges have been about getting to the other side. And that's kind of our perspective. Well, that's a bridge to get to the other side. Well, why can't it also be an entertainment district? Why can't it also be a trailhead? Why can't it also be a community center? It could be all of those things. In fact, by being each one of those things makes the other one stronger and more viable.
Yep.
That's kind of a European perspective or an old world perspective. We've had the luxury of so much space and so much resources that we tend to go towards single use solutions, which are
that's
easy
why,
to do, but they're kind of, and they sometimes they lack energy.
Yep. And that's why I notice when I travel to Europe myself, and what I love is, there's so much to do along the rivers, right? There's always shopping, there's restaurants, and some of the rivers aren't clean either, but they utilize it for a retail space or different things, right? Yep.
Exactly. In most places around the world, even in the United States, increasingly, I mean, Omaha, Des Moines, Oklahoma City, Wichita, they're all developing their waterfronts. This is not a new idea. If you go back east, Boston, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Chicago, that's the most valuable land in the city. And in Europe, of course, they had several thousand years where that was the interstate highway. That's why the city was there. So their walkways, their infrastructure really faces the river originally for practical reasons. And now it's for tourism, and it's an enchanting place to be next to moving water. Everybody loves water.
Yep, I agree. That's why waterfront properties are triple the price.
Yeah, and they hold their value.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So what are the attributes that you feel defines a hero?
A hero. I didn't realize we were going to go in this direction. A hero is somebody that's willing to put themselves second.
That's good.
A hero is someone who's willing to keep going, to sacrifice.
Okay. Oh, that's good. So a hero, you're saying someone that'll put themselves second, and someone that's sacrificial. And I definitely agree with that, because I think when you define a hero, altogether, they're usually not thinking for themselves,
Not solely. Of course, you got to take care of yourself, or you're not a very long-lasting hero.
Yep. So if you had to pick a superhero that relates best to you, who would that be and why?
I should have boned up on my superheroes. What do I got the choices between? There's a Green Lantern. I'm not really sure what he does besides carry a lantern. I don't know. Superhero. Maybe Batman, because he's just a regular guy.
That's good. Yep. A regular guy with a lot of money.
Yeah, he does have a butler, doesn't he? I don't have a butler.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's his superpower. I think in one of the episodes he said that my superpower is because I'm rich. So,
He does say that in the film.
Yep, he does say that in the film. I think one of the Spider-Man or something asked him, so what's your superpower? He goes, I'm rich. So,
Yeah.
So let's dive in a little more on your Rock Island Bridge project before we end the episode. What is the vision?
Well, the vision is to treat a bridge like land.
Okay.
It's a railroad bridge, so it was never salted. That's really important. It's built to carry locomotives, fully loaded freight trains, and it was never salted. The Buck O'Neill Bridge, the city of Kansas, Missouri, has been riffing on our idea, and we've encouraged them to. We should save our bridges here. It'd be great to be known as the city of bridges, wouldn't it? I mean, I like fountains, but city of bridges, that's cooler. We have different things. You have Kids Museum on one. We're doing an entertainment district. There's a lot of stuff you could do, but that's at core what we're doing. We're treating a bridge like land. And our bridge, it only needs $60,000 worth of deferred maintenance because it was never salted. There's no reason to, unlike a car bridge in the wintertime, you have to salt those.
Yep.
Here in Missouri, our railroad bridge was never salted, so it's not all rusted out. And what we're doing is we're taking that and we're thinking of it as a way to get to the other side. People will always be able to make their way across dismounted. It's connecting the levee trails on both sides. That's the origin of our partnership with Kansas City, Kansas. But we're making more land on the bridge. It's so robust that we can cantilever off of both sides with steel beams and make it wider. And we're going double decker. There's a nice video at rockislandkc.com. You can see the Gould Evans, which is now called Multi Studio, or our architects. They did some fabulous renderings You can move around for a minute and a half within this space. It's very charming. We'll have 2 very large, high-velocity commercial kitchens. We have LOIs for best in category tenants for those. We've got 3 bars, 1 downstairs, 2 upstairs. We have a 300-person event space. We have dance floors. We have gardens. We have elevators. We have enclosed kiosks for groups that are working with families to help activate the river and the trails system. So boating and biking groups. And adjacent to us now, it looks like an entrepreneur. I don't think I can say specifically who it is yet, is lining up to have zip lines go across the river.
Yep. That's cool.
So it's, the bridge, I think Kansas City, Kansas originally approached us for a simple solution. They lacked trails and they're developing the levee top trails. And they needed to connect them. What they've realized is that this bridge is also a catalyst, a detonator for waterfront development. It's already happening around us with about 1,000 apartments being built. We're right next to Hy-Vee Arena in the West Bottoms. We're in Kansas City, Kansas by about 50 feet. So we're right at the border over the Kansas River, and Flaherty Collins is building apartments right next to us. But the dream is for that development wave to carry on north all the way up to downtown KCK and the confluence with the Missouri River, and transform the Kansas River, which, let's be frank, right now is really more of a divider, a psychological as well as a physical divider between our 2 Kansas cities, to transform that over maybe a generation into a very attractive recreational developed connector that joins up our 2 cities. The Kansas City area used to really be an east-west metro up through World War II. Independence, Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas, east-west, running along the Missouri River there. It was after the war that it really it leapfrogged the river to the north, up all the way up to the airport, and then Johnson County drove it down south. We became a north-south city at that point. This is a way to reconnect 2 of those big east-west dots. And what happens when you reconnect economies, they accelerate exchange of ideas, people, money, things happen.
So what is the timeline that you guys are shooting for this project?
We will be open for St. Patrick's Day 2024.
Oh, wow. Okay,
yeah, it's
so
about
it's
a 12-month build in 2 phases. We have 100% construction drawings, and we've selected our 2 builders. The first half is with LG Barkus, based in Kansas City, Kansas, big company, and they fix and build railroad bridges around the country, and they're headquartered in KCK. Who knew it? In fact, it's a family-owned business. Grandpa Barkus built the lift gates on the Rock Island Bridge in the 1940s, and they're investors in the project. They're going to, put on the new steel and concrete decks, cantilever out, go double-decker in the middle there, and put railings on it and stub up utilities. And then they throw the keys to our other builder, Centric, which is a really top drawer, a conventional builder. They will construct the lightweight buildings and create the benches and all the finished details of the project. And it's about 12 months taken together. And we aim to start as soon as it warms up in the spring.
Wow. So, it's going to happen. It's going to happen pretty fast.
Yeah, it's happening. Yeah.
So if you guys want to learn more about the project, rockislandkc.com. Be sure to follow Michael Zeller. He's on LinkedIn. Follow him as well. And I'm really looking for it. It seems like a really exciting place to be. Kansas City, a lot is going on in our city with the World Cup coming and sports, everything, all the development coming in. So I think it's a good time to be living in Kansas City. And I appreciate your time, Michael. Thank you for hopping on our show.
You're welcome. I appreciate the chance to share the story. And you mentioned the World Cup, Monday Night Football, when the Chiefs are playing, and the national if the blimp's in town, do they still have a blimp or do they use drones? We're pretty confident that we're going to light up the river below. We'll have little twinkly lights. We'll have 1,000 people on that bridge dancing and watching the Chiefs that this bridge will soon become part of what people think of when you say Kansas City.
That's awesome. I think, hearing developments like yours just makes it really exciting, right? Because, in a lot of bigger metro cities, you have this kind of things. And Kansas City, you're just slowly seeing it transform, right? It's becoming, there's more to do. There's more culture too. I think there's different types of people starting to move it to the Midwest. So it's exciting times.
Yeah, and if we want to attract those folks who have choices, they can move to Seattle or Portland or Denver. We're going to need lifestyle opportunities like this. They want trails networks. They want exciting and unique things where they choose to live. And as a metro, we've got to figure out how to give them that.
No, that's awesome. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time.
Mm-hmm.